would I still rather choose XCN instead of Bitcoin right now? The answer is yes, even though nothing I say is financial advice. It's because the way you take a look at it is that 25 cents when it comes to XCN, that's around a 12x from here. Market cap, considering current circulating supply at that point, would be around $8.5 billion. We've seen Shiba Inu reach around 40 billion in terms of market cap back in 2021. We saw Dogecoin that year reach over 80 billion. Not to mention XRP, which is arguably like the main thing that people often compare XCN to. That market cap right there is well beyond 100 billion, right? And many people are still even saying that as of right now is not a fully fledged type of altcoin season, which I do agree with that because I don't think maybe that is the case as of right now. A bunch of altcoins out there, they're still not really doing that much. We haven't seen, in my opinion, arguably that type of 2021 type of altcoin season. And XRP is already doing that. So are we saying like somewhere along there, let's say there's a fully fledged type of altcoin season, XCN can't reach less than 10% of what XRP is right now in terms of market cap? This is the way you take a look at it. Not to mention, around a 12x, right? 25 cents. Bitcoin, because it's done very well, recently hit a new all-time high. But even besides that point, going to 300 grand, right? That's under a 3x from here. 500 grand, less than a 5x from here. Now, there's no telling what it's going to do in the future. At least I cannot, because I do not know the future. But the way you take a look at it is that in the next 6 to 10 months, what seems more logical for me and what would maybe have a less difficult time doing hypothetically a 12x? Again, XCN is an altcoin, way lower market cap. The volume that Bitcoin would need to do a 12x, especially in the next 6 to 10 months maybe, I mean, it doesn't seem that logical to me for it to do that. Like, how can that reach over a million, in my opinion, in the next 6 to 10 months? I'm not saying 10, 15 years later. I'm just saying hypothetically in the next 6 to 10 months. This is just my perspective. So I get it. When it comes to something like XCN, people may think, oh, it's an altcoin. Who cares about this? But the way you take a look at it is that if I got into Bitcoin years ago, that's a totally different case. But then as of right now, when I take a look at it, I would still rather choose XCN instead of that. This is just my perspective. I mean, if let's say Bitcoin did way better, right? Let's say 200, 300 grand, and let's say there's a fully fledged type of altcoin season, what would XCN do? Because typically, when the market isn't doing good, these type of altcoins like XCN, they have a pretty big pullback like what we saw not too long ago. But I think what XCN did not too long ago as well was kind of showcase that hypothetically, when there was even some hype when it comes to XCN and also altcoins just a little bit, we saw how well that did, right? Now, again, there's a pullback, but typically, from what I've seen, in some cases, when it comes to these altcoins that sometimes do good, when Bitcoin usually does very well, and let's say there's a fully fledged type of altcoin season, typically they sort of outperform that in terms of percentage, but then when Bitcoin drops, usually they drop a lot harder, which the pullback when it comes to XCN, it kind of did showcase that, right, the pullback. But let's say Bitcoin did a lot better, and again, let's say there's a fully fledged type of altcoin season, I would rather just believe in XCN. This is just my perspective. Now, some people may be thinking, okay, how long? Now, I do not know the future. However, at least historically, I can take a look at what happened. Now, usually, altcoins, as a worst case scenario, historically speaking, they typically peak around a year and a half after a Bitcoin halving event. Now, we're already over a year removed, actually, from the last Bitcoin halving event that happened in April of 2024, so last year. But a year and a half from then is actually October of this year. Now, we're not in October yet. Seems kind of close. But the way you take a look at it was that take a look at how fast Bitcoin recovered and hit a new all-time high from kind of the point it was before. And that is literally the biggest project that we have right now. So even though October may seem like a short time frame, if even Bitcoin was able to do that in such a relatively short amount of time, what could an altcoin do, right? We've even seen it not too long ago when it comes to XCN. Look at how fast that moved. There's no telling if it's ever going to do that again. I mean, there's no guarantees, but the way you take a look at it is that at least XCN historically has proven that, when the market wasn't even necessarily doing the best, in my opinion, when it comes to altcoins, it still did that. So I think it's a testament to the community. I think it's a testament to the project overall. And I think even Onyx right now has more to grasp onto fundamentally when compared to back then, because, they're planning to launch the wallet next month in August. And not to mention, we take a look at when it comes to Onyx, there's some attention there when it comes to Goliath, which allegedly could very well be this layer 1 blockchain for the world of finance. They're planning to launch the testnet in Q3 of this year. So I think arguably right now there is more to kind of, for me at least, to believe in when it comes to Onyx when compared to back then. And still, XCN did that back then. Now there's more to grasp onto. So the way you take a look at it is that Onyx fundamentally feels to me a lot better than back then. Not to mention, market cap isn't that massive. And the way I view it is this. Onyx is in this unique kind of sort of position, I would say, because it doesn't have that many viable competitors, in my opinion. Now, let me explain what I mean by this, because, of course, Ripple, Stellar, they're number 1 and number 2 when it comes to these type of, Onyx, Zebic or XPR type of projects. But even besides that, those aren't direct competitors, arguably, I would say, for something like Onyx. So let's take a look at its more close competitors, I would say. There's XPR, there's Zebic, there's something called Swiftcoin, and XDC. Now, that's 4 other than, XCN, or should I say Onyx, if we remove Stellar and as well as Ripple, right? So then, just think about that. The payments market is currently valued at over $2 trillion. The global trade and finance market is predicted to reach up to $5 trillion in value by 2028, according to Mordor Intelligence. And yet, within this space, there is not that many competitors? I mean, if there's not that many options to even begin with that are viable, arguably, in my opinion, if people do really focus on these type of projects, again, there's not that many options. So XCN is kind of like one of the few, the way I view it. I think a lot of this was kind of caused because of the, Ripple and SEC stuff that went on for quite a while, which hopefully now is gone forever. And I think because of that stuff kind of going down for quite a while, I think what happened was maybe, in my perspective, a lot of these developers probably thought, why would we try to enter into a space that kind of doesn't have this reputation, right? So I think maybe a lot of these developers, instead of devoting their time, energy, and effort to a market that at that time, maybe the reputation wasn't necessarily the best, I think they probably thought, okay, let's kind of devote our time to maybe some other, market sectors, like maybe blockchain gaming, AI, whatever the case may be, like for instance, decentralized finance. So then as a result, now it could, I think, arguably be considered somewhat a good thing for something like Onyx in the grand scheme of things, because now there isn't that many competitors. So this is something that I find very exciting. If I consider how Ripple and Stellar are number 1 and number 2, number 3 I would say is XDC, but number 4, arguably, it's like a toss-up between Onyx or ZBCN, or should I say Zebic. That's kind of crazy to think about, actually. I mean, there's not that many competitors, again, within this space. So this is why I'm still very excited when it comes to Onyx. I'm just waiting. But again, when I consider the unique position it has in the market that it's focused on, when I consider the amount of competitors it has, when I consider the market cap, in my opinion, I would just rather choose this over Bitcoin, even still as of right now. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'll greatly appreciate it. It's Willie the Captain, and I'll catch you all in the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.